Hello, everyone, and welcome to TEPS Present Teacher. This is third season, and this is episode 7. This time's episode is a little different than the previous times. We've been telling and we've been talking to all of you about what can be done, what can be done for TPD, what can be done for curriculum development, etc. Today, we are going to change it up a little bit. We are going to switch gears and talk about what we have actually done. So this is going to be more real, more concrete, hopefully, and basically this is sharing of our experiences over the last few weeks, and this happens with us, every year, at least twice or at least thrice a year, during the summer breaks, during the Dashera Diwali break, and then the winter break, where we work with teachers from different schools. And what we're going to talk today is mainly going to be focused on the teachers and school leaders that we spoke to um, over the last few weeks, in the month of May, and so far in June. So yeah, so with that, before we get into that, I just like to introduce who we are. Um, we are obviously Things Education, and another brand name of TEPS. We work with teachers, educators, school leaders on various different aspects. Uh, we have our digital and in-person courses for teachers under TEPS courses. Apart from that, we have a number of digital resources like lesson planning resources, weekly newsletters, monthly podcasts like this one. And for the school leaders, we also have competency assessment tools, classroom observation tools, etc. So once as a school leader, you are providing support to your teachers, uh, we also you would also want to know if these kind of interventions in terms of development programs for teachers are actually making a difference in the classroom. So we can have classroom observation tools and so forth. So all of this is another TEPS banner, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Essentially, that's what we want to talk about today. Um, with that, I'd like to introduce the other co-host of this podcast, Ritu. Yeah, Ritu.
Thanks, Anirudh. Welcome, everyone. So, I'll quickly take you through the overview of the webinar. We're going to start with a quick recap of what we have spoken about previously, which is how we identify TPD needs or teacher professional development needs and turn them into focus areas. Then we will be taking real examples of what we've done over the past few weeks with teachers using the theory model practice feedback framework, what that actually looks like, followed by what feedback we've received on this framework, on our approach, on all of the resources that we've shared with teachers, and why this has been very effective. And finally, now that the teacher professional development, at least the beginning of your part of it is done, what comes next for a school? So, if you're a school leader, if you're a teacher, or even if you're a teacher trainer, that part specifically will be, all of it will be useful for you. So please do stay through till the end. We'll also have a quick Q&A section at the end, but feel free to keep putting in your questions into the chat box, and our team will keep collating them and let us know what the questions are. So we will try and answer most of them or all of them if possible. Um, so yeah, with that, let's get started. Why this webinar and why now? So this is TPD time in schools. May, June is summer break in different parts of India, and that is when teachers are expected to come to school and upskill themselves with week-long or 2 week long professional development workshops. And that's what we've been doing, and that's why we've managed to put in 200 plus hours of teacher professional development over the past month. We had spoken last time about how we approach the planning of these sessions. And now that we've done quite a bit of implementation, we want to share that with you. So we're now moving from planning of these sessions to the implementation. There are, this is a framework through which we think about how TPD sessions are, or at least the first step to planning strong TPD. Many schools plan TPD, and you're looking at the smallest circle right now in the middle. Plan TPD as one session for compliance with the NEP or for compliance with any other mandate that's come to them. And that's something that we feel is not a very useful approach. If we want to do TPD, what we start with is planning one very strong session. If it's a 1 day session, if that's what the school wants. Um, of course, in that case, we have to understand what the school wants, what the teacher needs are, what the goals are, where the gaps are, and we plan our one strong TPD session based on that. Um, Ideally, we do like to do longer interventions with teachers, and that begins with doing at least 1 week of beginning of your TPD, um, which also follows is based on what the teachers need, what the school needs, and then we hopefully also work with schools for the whole year, which again starts with the school needs, the teacher needs, and we follow a particular framework which we will be talking about in this webinar. So we'll go into details of that. But this is how we generally look at. This is our first step towards planning TPD, along with also doing a very deep understanding of what are the needs of the school. How do we identify what the school needs, whether we're doing a 1 day TPD or a 1 week TPD or a whole year TPD? We start by assessing teacher competencies. We do a baseline assessment. For example, this year, we tested or assessed teachers on more than uh, a little less than 50 teaching competencies. Um, we did this through written MCQs, so a written assessment that teachers had to go through what the management of the school or the teacher managers shared with us based on the competencies that we wanted to assess, and also observing teachers in their actual classroom when they're teaching kids. Um, we're able to then get a very holistic understanding of what competencies the teachers are good at and where they might need support. Um, Based on that, we then shortlist a few competencies. We did this, and that's what we did this time. We shortlisted about 5 competencies, um, so that we could have very, very focused TPD sessions. And of course, this was done in conversation with the school, depending on what they thought was the most important. And we then use those competencies to start planning our teacher professional development sessions. To give you a more concrete understanding of what this looks like, this is a report that we shared with one of the organizations that we were working with, where based on interactions with the teachers, based on what they were able to create in terms of resources, lesson plans, and based on written assessments, you are able to give a very comprehensive report to the organization about where each teacher is in terms of the various competencies, and then recommend to them what the focus needs to be for their teacher professional development. Um, and this is how we like to start every intervention with teachers, because we don't want to just do it based on what a policy is saying or what intuition may be saying. It also is backed by very strong data. With that, I'll hand it back to Anirudh, and we'll talk about the very specific framework that we use when we actually go into the classroom and work with teachers. So yeah, over to you, Anirudh.
Yeah, thanks, Ritu. I think that was very useful. So now just think of it like this: that we've done the assessment, we've spoken to the school leaders, but once now that we are in the room with the teachers, with the educators, we have a framework that or a model that we follow, and that model is the theory model practice feedback framework. Essentially, we'll talk about the theory. We'll model out the way it needs to be done. We give the teachers a lot of time to practice, and once they practice it, I mean, as they are practicing it, there is a lot of feedback that is going in from us, from their peers, etc. And this framework is essentially what we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about. So we'll look at the first step as we go ahead. So, what is theory? That the people, whoever the participants are, need to understand what is the why are we doing whatever we are doing, and how it works. So, as we go ahead, and we'll take a couple of examples here. So, for example, now you know that there's a lot of this. conversation around competency-based education. So the first step to understanding what competency-based education looks like in the classroom, it would be good to have a decent foundational understanding of what a competency is. So, through discussions, through asking questions, and through what we call active learning for even the participants and the educators, we come up with something, theory, which is sort of what is given on the screen, where competency is a combination of knowledge and skill, which is then together applied to a real world task. And if we can assess the performance of a student in that said real world task, the competency should, that's we us assessing competency of the students. And essentially this is the framework, or this is the backbone of competency based education. So that's what we mean by, theory sort of being at the base or the first step of anything that we approach. um, so another example is that we were talking to a bunch of school leaders, and there was this question from the participants as to what is rote memory. I mean, there were multiple questions. That one was at the very basic, what is rote memory. Second was that, without memorizing things there is no understanding or there is no application. And then a third level of question was, what is the actual difference between rote memorization and understanding. um, so to sort of address these kinds of questions, it is very important for us to go back to the cognitive science theories of how the mind learns, and what is the role of memory in learning. Is making memories learning itself? And then what do you call understanding, and what understanding is not? So those are the kinds of conversations that happen. And these happen also, like I just gave you an example, sometimes these happen just because of the kind of questions that come up in the during the session. But that is the basis for creating everything else. Now the example that I just gave you regarding the difference between rote memory and understanding came because we were talking to school leaders. They wanted to move from rote learning to learning that students can actually apply in their daily life. So they wanted to understand what is the difference then. How do I know that this is rote and this is not rote? How do we get down to the nuances of those things? So it's a good place to start, where you can, sort of go back to the cognitive science theories and figure out what is rote and what is not. And then based on that, you can create your own practices to ensure that we are teaching for understanding, or at least facilitating uh, the situation in a way that a student understanding can happen. Okay, so this is the theory part of it. Um, if you can go to the next slide, I think the second part is my least favorite part, where I have to sort of, or any but one who's facilitating the session, sort of models the things for the participants, and the participants are supposed to observe, understand how it's done in the classroom. And this is almost done in a sort of role play way, where we role play as the teachers, and the participants most of the time role play as the students. Um, as we go ahead, we'll talk about a couple of examples here. Um, Again, I'm going to take an example first from a school leaders workshop, um, where we were trying to plan a pilot um, for a change in curriculum in their schools. And what we did was we sort of shared a step by step 8 week plan with them first. That, hey, this is what I would do if it were my school. These are the things that I would sort of do at every stage and every week. And as you can see here, if you focus on weeks 6, that is when the actual intervention begins. And the 5 weeks prior to that is actually just planning for that intervention to begin. So those are kinds of things that we actually show them. Similarly, there is, when we talk about active learning, um, there is a very big confusion a lot of times between activity based learning and active learning. So, sh- taking very concrete examples of what an activity is and what active learning is, we can sort of show teachers um, how one can approach an active learning exercise in the classroom while ensuring that it's not just an activity that the student is doing without using their minds. So those are the kinds of things that we sort of do. And with that, I think I can hand it over to Ritu for the next example.
Yeah, thanks, Anirudh. And while you said that this is probably your least favorite part of the session, I think for teachers it ends up being the most useful because you also notice at a time when we feel like, this is a very simple routine. For example, what you're seeing on the screen right now in the laptop. Um, we were teaching we were working with teachers on early learning, and the routine that you're seeing on screen is a routine for the pictorial part of teaching addition to students. So how do you teach addition to students through the use of pictures? And because we had already done the concrete part, we thought that teachers now know how to read the routine, they understand the entire approach. Why not just give them the routine and tell them, try it out on your own and show it to us? So we wanted to skip the model step and move to the next step, which is practice. And we asked teachers to do that, and they insisted that no, you model it out for us. We want to really see what it is, because when we read it, we may be missing some things that we only realize when you model it out. So we found that teachers actually find it very, very useful to see someone modeling out, even though it's written down for them, because then it becomes very real and they can see body language, they can see where you pause, they can see where you ask questions, or how you deal with misconceptions that kids may have. Um, so it's probably the most important part of the framework as well. So, like I said here, we this is a routine that we show teachers, but we also model it out, and we draw pictures, we use pictures to show how pictorial addition can be taught to kids. What you're also seeing on the screen is the picture up top is showing teachers how to help students slant their paper or their book on the table. Remember that these are very tiny 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds that we're thinking of. So we're teaching teachers how to get kids to slant their paper correctly so that they are able to write well. And here specifically, our facilitator is showing them how to do that with left-handed kids, because that's where a lot of teachers and students struggle if they're left-handed. Similarly, in the bottom picture, we're teaching teachers how to work with kids on holding pencils correctly. So if a pencil is kept in front of you on the table, what do you say to them? What do you do with them, so that they're able to hold the pencil, pick up the pencil and hold it correctly? Because if the grasp of the pencil is wrong, their writing is going to be difficult, it's going to be painful, it's going to be untidy. And because we can't explain to kids in words how to pick up a pencil, because it requires a lot of complicated hand gestures and movements, we have to use tips and tricks with kids. And here we were modeling it out for the teacher, and the teacher is acting as a kid basically in this lower picture. So that really helps teachers in seeing how to approach any concept, whether it's a big pedagogical principle or it's something as simple as how do I pick up a pencil. The model part of it is very, very important. So we've talked about two steps of our framework, starting with the theory and then actually modeling it out for teachers so that they're able to see what it looks like. What helps? What is it that really helps teachers in this entire process? One is giving them very, very clear examples of whatever it is that we're talking about. You had seen earlier that we showed teachers in the theory part what a competency is. It's made up of knowledge, skill, real world task. All of that together makes a competency. So here we showed teachers a very real example of how to create a competency based task for a very particular topic in maths, in this case, using centimeters and meters. Or Anand also talked about the active learning part of it, that how do you plan for active learning? We actually showed them an example on the screen while we talked them through that, or while we modeled it. So seeing these very clear, concrete examples is also very, very useful for teachers. In the last picture, you see that we're talking about a kid who's been rude and distracted, and this discussion was around how we can always maintain a professional approach in school as teachers or as educators, so that we're ensuring that we're doing the right thing always as far as possible, keeping in mind our colleagues, our students, the parents. So we discussed very real fictional scenarios, but something that is very, very real and can possibly happen in school very often. So clear examples help teachers a lot. Seeing it concretely on the screen is very useful. So we've completed two steps, that is theory and model, and now we are coming to the third step, which is practice, which is probably the part that we give the most amount of time to, because here is where we stop and say, okay, you've understood the theory, we've discussed it, you've seen us model it out, you've asked us your questions, you've seen some examples. Now it's time for you to try it out. So here, the teacher is saying, okay, now I get to try out whatever I have understood so far. Um, so, like you can see in these pictures, it's not just that we're asking teachers to go ahead and do something in front of the whole class. We give them a lot of time to sit down either individually or in groups and discuss, plan. We walk around, we ask them questions, we try and understand where they are stuck, where they may be confused, and provide our suggestions. And ensure that they get enough time and support to practice whatever it is that they're practicing. If they have to create a small routine, that is the practice part of it, where they sit together, they discuss it, and they create a routine. Um, they actually write it down in their notebook, or if they have their laptops, they type it out. That's what they're practicing. If they have to plan out a lesson plan, that's what they get time for. If they have to actually come and teach a particular topic, a concept, explain it, pretend that we are the kids and do that in front of us, that's what they plan for. So they sit together, they plan that entire thing out, they even make TLMs, that's teaching learning material at times, and use that to come and teach that routine or that plan or that concept to the entire class, um, and do it like get a real experience of what it is like to actually do this. So here you can see that in this case teachers are sitting together and they have certain resources with them, and they're discussing what the right approach would be to a particular concept. In the second picture, the teachers are practicing how to teach letter sound mapping. That is, that kids know a sound and they now have to understand what the letter is that represents that sound, and how do you teach that connection. So that's what the teachers are practicing. In the picture up here, they are practicing a routine on teaching kids number recognition. Again, pre-K or LKG kids. Um, in the last picture down here, you can see that they're planning out a lesson plan or a routine. So they're sitting, they're writing. Our instructors are walking around, talking to them, giving them feedback, or supporting them in the moment, so that it goes well and they're on the right path. Um, I think what makes this part of it very, very useful is that we always encourage teachers to work in groups and to have peer discussions, to give each other feedback, um, and that makes it very, very. It becomes a very collaborative and supportive environment. Sometimes teachers who have not had a chance to work together get to work together. Sometimes different subject teachers sit together, or teachers from different schools, if it's a big organization or a group school, they sit together and they plan. And it just helps in creating a very, very collaborative culture for the school as well, which helps in the long term. And that's why I think the practice part and the peer discussion part of it is extremely useful.
Effect was if the
Sorry about that. I'm going to hand it over to Anuj now to take this forward. So just to remind you, we are at the practice part, practice stage of um, our framework of TPD.
Yeah, thanks, Ritu. I think I'm just going to add one part to the practice thing. You can move to the next slide. Um
effect was
Here,
if the template
before we start the video, I don't know how much you can hear, but I'll just summarize it for you before you hear it. Essentially, the teachers are saying that, hey, you gave us the template and the framework sorry, a template for something, you gave it to us very late. And I'll give you context to that. Okay, yeah, we can play the video now.
We felt was if the template was given to us in the morning today, then multiple times we actually wrote in the book and finally it came to the paper. So that process, like the questions were very clear in the template.
So, I mean, I don't. I'm not going to go into why we gave the templates later on in the sequence, but the things that the teachers, the school leaders here say, is kind of testament to giving the templates when you want them to practice. Also, the structure helps. These kinds of templates are made by our team, who are also making these presentations and the content for these sessions. So these templates by themselves will not make sense, and just giving them some exercise to do without any structure or with very little structure also is not very helpful, just like the teacher was saying here. But combining both at the right time, of getting them to think for themselves in the beginning and then giving them a template which helps them structure their thoughts, is the way to go when we want to get the teachers to practice. So moving on from the practice part of it, of course, when the teachers are practicing, the next part is that you are going to give feedback. But it's not just us as facilitators who give the feedback. The first feedback kind of comes from the peer group itself. We can move to the next slide actually. um, and the peer group is very, I mean, if done right, the peer group gets really active in the way that they give feedback. As long as we create the right kind of atmosphere in the session, the feedback is generally positive in the sense of how it's said and how it's taken. The feedback also helps, of course, the when the teachers sort of then think that, hey, you know what, yes, I can think of it this way. And getting ideas from a science teacher to an English teacher gives them a completely unique point of view. And this kind of becomes a very powerful session in the sense that these teachers and educators have been working with each other for years, if not more, right? A few years at least. And just because of the daily routine of their lives, they're spending hours and hours in the staff room as well together, but they've never had such conversations with each other, just because of the nature of their work and the nature of the duties that they have. So this becomes very rich and useful for the teachers themselves. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. um, so what do we give feedback on? We give feedback on the kind of things that the teachers create. Here you can see that there's a actual lesson plan with teaching learning materials that have been created on the in the picture in the left. um, Someone has also now created um, specific learning outcomes and then broken down the learning outcome into what we call as mini learning outcomes for this exercise. um, and you can see that this is being done for Kannada and Hindi. So that's also something that we like to pride ourselves on. That doesn't matter what topic or subject you're doing. There are some things that can be universally true for uh, pedagogy and classroom management. And then finally, there are slightly more abstract concepts of can I figure out what is the core purpose of my subject, and from there can I break it down into the essential idea for this topic or this concept. And as you can see here, we have been working with teachers from computer science, music, arts, pottery, yoga, um, and getting them to think about the core purpose and all of that. Sometimes it's really useful, and I most recently I was working with a group of what we call as non-core subjects. But I think the lateral thinking that comes in from those groups is really refreshing sometimes, to hear what they are saying and how they approach teaching and learning itself. So, yeah, I mean, that's also a good experience for us. But yeah, the final thing that I want to say, final one thing that I wanted you to take away is that feedback is given in the process of the participants creating something, but also to the final product that they kind of make. So, with that, can we move to the pause in this webinar? It's just a quick check to ensure that all of you are still awake, I guess. Um, And what we're doing is there's a question up on the screen, and there'll be a poll with options A, B, C, and D in a bit. As you can see, it's already there on your screen now. It'll be at the bottom right corner, whatever screen you have. The question is the facilitator demonstrates how to turn a general activity into an activity linked with to a learning outcome. So, which part of the TEPS TPD approach is this? Is this theory? Is it modeling? Is it practice? Or is it feedback? I think you can vote for your what you think is the right answer here, and you keep the poll active for the next few seconds, and then maybe I think we can close the poll now. And yeah, I think the poll is closed now. And yeah, we can move to the next slide, which gives us a poll result that has been unprecedented. Yeah, I mean it is modeling. You're showing the rest of the group something that you have already spoken about, hopefully, and showing that how can I link the activity that you're already thinking of to the learning outcome from your class. Is it practice? Yes. If teachers start doing it, then it moves into practice. But right now the facilitator demonstrates it, so that is why it is modeling. Okay, so we can move to the next slide. So now, yeah, we have said that okay, this is the framework, this is how it works, this is what we do. All of this is what we think, what we said, what we do. Um, but I think that it needs to be reiterated that this kind of one framework sort of works in different kinds of schools, contexts, topics, be it the Madhya Pradesh uh, assessment body or the Andhra Pradesh state government teachers, whether they are teaching chemistry or English, or they're learning how to teach chemistry in English, or it's a private school in an urban area like Bangalore or Pune. This framework has worked. Through this framework, you can we are doing multiple different topics, and we address a lot of areas, right from early literacy, numeracy, whole child development in the foundational years, to competency based education across the grade spectrum everywhere. Yeah, and we also then take up courses on professionalism for educators, Gen AI, writing skills, etc. And yeah, I mean, so the framework still kind of stands the test of all of these tests, and eventually it sort of helps the participants create plans, routines, or frameworks which are ready for the classroom. We always, when we're talking to the schools, we always say that after our sessions, they should not be a question of what can I do after I've gone through this session. Okay, what can I do in the class next week? They should be very clear of what they can actually take away from these sessions and actually start implementing next week in their classroom. So that is what we hope for, and that's what we are aiming towards. Um, yeah, we can go to the next slide, please. So, hello, hi. Yeah,
There were many takeaways.
we'll have to pause that for a second. So now, like I said, we have been talking about how what we have done. Maybe let's hear from some of the people who have worked with us or who we have worked with. Hmm?
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and play the video. Thanks, Anirudh. Yeah, so like we said, we've talked about the framework, we've talked about the theory, modeling, practice, feedback framework that we use, and we are saying that it works across contexts, across schools. Like Anuj said, we'd like to also let you hear from the teachers themselves. So I'm just going to play the quick feedback videos, and happy to also hear your thoughts and questions
There were
along.
many takeaways. One wonderful thing that I learned was project based learning, how to integrate project into learning. and also flipped class. And the major takeaway was that you don't need to do anything different. It's not like rocket science, something totally different from what you're doing. The one thing that stood out for me was what Anirudh said, tweak what you're already doing. So it wasn't like the regular workshops where you dismiss what teachers are already doing. So he never did that. He took what we were doing and tried to make it better. I think that's the biggest takeaway.
Okay, and any feedback, anything that we could do better?
I think it was perfect. Didn't make us feel bored. Active learning actually happened while teaching active learning. So we were all involved. We all took part in all the activities that were there. And we got very constructive feedback. So there was also peer feedback, which helped us.
And I think this is the kind of feedback we often receive that one, we don't ever ask teachers to change what they're like to completely stop what they're doing. We start with where teachers already are, what they're already doing, and we try and build upon that. That's feedback we've received from many teachers that they appreciate that there's no rigidity about one approach is good and one approach is bad. Teachers have a lot of experience, they have a lot of expertise, and that's something we really respect. And we try and ensure that every teacher can uh, contribute to other teachers and also learn from other teachers. So it's a group effort. It's not that we're going in as experts and just giving information. The other thing is using the pedagogy that we are teaching. So if we are talking about active learning, we make sure that teachers also experience active learning. If we are talking about constructivism, we make sure that the structure of our uh, approach is also constructivist so that they get to experience it as learners as well. I'll just move to the next slide where we have a little bit more feedback from a couple of teachers.
A lot of thought process went behind this, and we also had a little bit of critical thinking and a lot of thinking which went to depth.
uh, I totally agree with her. Like when we heard about the phrase, or rather the theme, curriculum innovation, it was like we thought of integrating only technology, tools, and all those things. We never thought about making the students think independently, meaningfully, and right, where we are driving our children to a beautiful future ahead.
And also involving teachers to do this process.
Because they're the best people to take the students and make them ready.
Correct.
And build a beautiful generation of humans.
Humans.
I think
And
that's something.
which
Yeah.
we basically empathy driven.
Empathy driven.
Empathy
The fifth
driven.
lens was, I
Fifth
think,
lens
the
was
best
the
of
best
all.
one.
The best of all, because here and there we feel the first four lenses, we may not be having these jargons in our lesson plan, but
But
however, we might be doing it in a way. Okay, however, the new terminologies we have learned as well.
Yeah.
And the session, before we rather implement it or take it to the class or take it to the staff room to our facilitators, I think it helped us, to start that process of thinking independently and how we can help our teachers or our team and support them in making this possible in a classroom.
Anuj, would you like to maybe just summarize what they were saying over here and where the feedback was coming from?
I think yeah, the main thing is that a lot of times what happens is that uh, teachers think that we have information, teachers need to give the information to the students, and just getting them out of that sort of mindset is important, and that kind of excited these teachers. The other thing that was really exciting for them was that like I mentioned earlier, that they could actually then really deeply and critically think about how they're approaching lessons and all of that. So an example in that is that um, talking about like I said, this is with the school leaders, and we were trying to think about what we need to innovate in the curriculum as their curriculum stands. And one of the first questions in that was that, okay, we are going to innovate, so we're going to get new things, so we need to first focus on what are the things that you're going to throw away from the existing curriculum. So that in itself was a very critical exercise for them, and that is when they started realizing that, okay, you know what, there's so many things that we talk about and teach without thinking as to why we are teaching these things in this day and age. So those are the kind of things, and I think the empathy part of it, which I think was a new concept for some of them. So new concept doesn't. It was new in terms of actually deliberately planning the empathy and social emotional learning and interweaving it into the curriculum itself. That part was new for them. So yeah, those kinds of things is what they were really happy about, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Anirudh. Um, on the next slide, the feedback is in Hindi. So I'll just play it and then I'll also summarize what the teacher says over here. She's actually not a teacher. The person on the next slide is a school owner and was trying to figure out how to support her teachers in her school.
तो मैम वहाँ के जो आज मैंने देखा वो बहुत अच्छा लगा। इससे पहले हमारे कॉन्सेप्ट्स क्लियर नहीं थे कि हम जो पढ़ा रहे थे वो बेसिक इस तरीके से पढ़ा रहे थे, वे 2+2 4 जैसे बच्चे को दिया। बट जो आज मैंने यहाँ देखा है, जो रितु मैम ने एक्सप्लेन किया है, उसके हिसाब से ये जो हम करवा रहे हैं बच्चों को, वो फ्री हैंड करवा रहे हैं, फ्रीडम के साथ करवा रहे हैं। जैसे हमने एक्टिविटी दी बच्चों को, उस एक्टिविटी को जैसे बच्चों ने जोड़ा, अपने माइंड से जोड़ा, अपना माइंड सेट किया, तो उनका जो सेंस है वो बहुत अच्छे से काम किया। और दूसरा मैम ये है कि बच्चों को जो फ्रीडम देते हैं अपने हिसाब से, तो बच्चे ग्रुप में भी करते हैं, तो वो एक दूसरे का देख के भी सीख रहे हैं। एज ए टीचर उनको हेजिटेशन रहता है, जब हम बच्चे को फ्री हैंड छोड़ते हैं तो वो बच्चा क्या करता है कि अपना भी देखता है, दूसरे का भी देखता है। तो ये चीज़ मुझे बहुत अच्छी लगी कि इसको देख के बच्चों में एक कॉन्फिडेंस आता है और बच्चे अपने आप पे प्रेशर फील नहीं करते। और जो मैम का पढ़ाने का और बताने का तरीका है वो तो सो नाइस कि मैं बहुत इंस्पायर हुई हूँ मैम से और मुझे बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है।
So here, like I was saying, that we get teachers to experience the pedagogy that we want them to take into their classroom, and here we worked with them on some principles of early numeracy, like you can see on the screen, and got teachers to actually do activities that kids would do to learn concepts. We gave teachers difficult concepts to do in maths, which they would also struggle with, so that they would understand what children go through when they're learning numeracy for the first time, and how we can use these principles to make that experience easier and more meaningful for kids. And that's what she was sort of summarizing, that getting kids to work in groups, giving them freedom, letting them explore, um, all of that helped them understand those slightly tough maths concepts. And so she thinks that it's going to work really well with her students as well. So that's what teachers from various grade cities, courses said about our this is video feedback that they have given us. We'll now also show you a little bit of data that we collected around that feedback. Over to you, Anuj.
Yeah.
Anuj is on mute, if I'm not wrong.
So this is something that we take very seriously. The feedback that we get, and we kind of try to use the quantitative and the qualitative data that we get from our feedback. Um, and right now, as we speak, there is someone tearing their hair out right behind this camera, trying to figure out the data that I'm going to just talk about very briefly. So some of the things, I mean, we look at a number of things, but right now on this graph you can see that we're talking and we're asking for the participants to tell us how relevant the session was for them, the quality of the session, the increase in confidence in the topic for the participant, and the increase in likelihood of implementing this in the classroom. So as you can see that for everything, and these are different sort of courses or the topics that we have done with a bunch of teachers, and all of this data comes from more than 350 teachers over the last few weeks, like I said. And as you can see, 4 in 5 teachers, at least 4 in 5 teachers, are finding it relevant. They like the quality, they have an increased level of confidence, and they are more likely to implement it. So that is good. Keep that in mind that they are more likely to implement it. We'll get back to that in a bit. As we go to the next slide, we see that not only are they likely to implement whatever they've learned, they are also happy to sort of recommend. Again, at least 4 or 5 teachers are happy to recommend these courses to their colleagues. And I mean, basically, that's how our thing works. Mm, Now, at this stage, I think it would be important for me to sort of say that all of this happens because uh, we have a great team uh, which works on not just the content creation but also creation of the flows, the slides, mm, the talking points sometimes as well. And this, I mean, over the last few years, we've been trying to build a team who can, take a few sessions with the teachers, facilitate discussions, etc. This year, I think we have sort of uh, increased the number of experts who we have, and that's really helpful for us also. But yeah, a lot of this goes back to the team that we sort of have. Yeah. So with that, I think I'll pause now, and Ritu, if you can.
Thanks, Anuj. So we'll take a small pause and we'll do a quick poll. The question is, what will help, what is most likely to help teachers turn a new idea into classroom ready work? What is a TPT design that will help teachers? So you have A, B, C, and D. The poll will be live on your screen in a bit, so you can read through and select A, B, C, or D depending on what you think is the right TPT design. Let me know when the poll is live. Okay, I think it is already live on your
Live,
screen
yeah.
on your bottom right. We'll give it about 20 to 30 seconds for you to read through and give us your answer. Don't forget to click on submit so that your answer gets to us and we're able to see all of the responses.
So the poll is closed now.
Okay.
Just, I mean, it's just closing right now, and yeah, I think we can move to the next slide now.
Okay, great. So, 100% of you got it right that the TPT design that is most likely to help teachers is that they see one clear example, they use a simple template, and then they actually create something. Mm, Option A, which is about just explaining the concept in detail, that is just theory. We can't do that because we want teachers to once see what that concept looks like in practice and also practice it in front of the class so that they get feedback. Um, Option C is not correct because it's not about just reading an idea and submitting. That's very theoretical learning. We want to ensure that teachers are getting a practical experience as well. And of course, D is also not correct because we don't want teachers to just listen quietly. Their job is to be in front of a group of children and teach them, and that's what TPD should also focus on, giving them that opportunity to practice it, get feedback, and get better. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. B is the one that works the best in our experience. So, we're going to quickly summarize what we have spoken about so far. Um, our data informed teacher development journey begins with the assessment stage where we understand what the teacher competencies are. I mean, what is already working well, where teachers need support. We have a very comprehensive framework of all of these teacher competencies. So teachers give a written or take a written MCQ. They're observed in their classroom. They also do a self-assessment of their interests, their areas of support, their behavioral traits, and we also look at teaching learning material to get a very, very holistic understanding of where each teacher is. Based on that, we've already shown you the report. We give very detailed reports to the school so that we're able to take a decision with them on what the next steps should be. Um, we plan out those next steps based on the discussion with the school, based on the assessment, and through during our planning and our actual development, which is the TBD sessions, we follow the theory model practice feedback format, which we've just talked about. And the next step, which is coming up now, is the demonstration part, where teachers now have to actually show how well they're able to implement this in the classroom. It always begins with once they are now in the training room, they now need to go into the staff room, plan with their subject groups, plan with their principal, plan with whoever is responsible for that, create the lesson plans, create the learning outcomes, create the TLM, and then finally take it into the classroom and practice it, implement it with their students. Um, so that's what's coming up next for teachers, and that's what's coming up next for us. Is now that TPD is done for the moment, the beginning of your TPD is done. Teachers will now start practicing it, and the assessment will also start at the same time, where we will start observing them. We will start looking at their teaching learning material. We will have manager conversations with them, and that's where we come back to the assess stage, and the cycle sort of continues from there. Um, to quickly summarize what we've talked about, what is it that makes TPD effective? It's very important that teachers actually do something during these sessions. Once they've understood the theory and once they've seen a model, they need to create usable outputs. These could be concrete teaching learning materials, or they could be um, taking their existing plans, taking their existing routines, and tweaking them so that whatever they have learned in the session is incorporated into that, and they're ready for their class. We have seen that the theory, model, practice, feedback framework works regardless of the city, the context, the subject, the topic. It also doesn't matter if it's done just in one session, or it's done over a week, or it's done over a year. This model works and it works well. We are seeing that in the effectiveness of the sessions while we are there, the kind of feedback that we're getting. We're also going to start now seeing that in the implementation in the school, and over time, hopefully, in student learning outcomes. But as of now, we have seen it work very effectively in terms of teacher confidence, like you saw, in the relevance, in them thinking that it's such an effective session that they would also recommend it to their peers. Um, and now we're ready for the next steps, which is into the staff room and then into the classroom. So with that, we'll move to the question and answer section and try and answer some of the questions that you have. Just before that, we have a ton of these similar courses available on our TEPS courses platform. That's the platform that you are on right now, watching this webinar. Um, so if you'd like to go and check out some of our courses and our teaching learning material, please do go check it out. And you can also become a member, which makes a lot of that available to you for an entire year with no limit on that. So thanks for sticking around, and we'll move into question and answer session, into the Q&A section right now. And I will stop sharing my screen for a bit while we do this.
Yeah, thanks, Ritu. Srishti, if there are any questions from either this platform or others.
Question: what should be included in a teacher progress report so that it is useful and not evaluated?
Anuj, I wasn't able to hear the question too well. If you could take that, please. Am I audible?
Can you hear me now, Ritu?
I could, yeah. Could you ask Anuj to answer that? I'm not able to hear you too well.
Okay.
So, the kind of things that you would include in an assessment, a teacher assessment, would be things like um, what the teacher knows, uh, what the teacher can do in the classroom, and where the teacher is at in how they're thinking about their own development. Another thing that we also, another broad area that we also check are the behavioral and the psychometric aspects of the teachers. So those are the broad areas that we can assess. And we do this in multiple ways. It doesn't have to be just a pen and paper test. There can be classroom observations. There can be managed conversations with other staff members, etc. But all of that is sort of done in one other way of doing it is actually getting the teachers to share their lesson plans and look at them and sort of those are the ways I think we can those are things that we should assess in our teacher assessment.
I will ask the next question. Am I audible to? Okay. How can we make teaching useful for both new teachers and senior teachers?
Okay. Um, so there are a couple of ways to maybe approach it. What we usually do is that we actually prefer having both senior teachers and new teachers in the same room because, like I said earlier, teacher expertise, teacher experience is very, very useful. And giving senior teachers the opportunity to uh, learn something new, but also then mentor the new teachers in the room with them um, is a very, very useful approach we've seen. One, it helps to acknowledge the experience and the expertise that the senior teachers bring in, and it gives them a chance to articulate some practices that they may be doing, but they may never have had the chance to put it into words. A lot of very, very good teachers do a lot of things very intuitively, um, but find it difficult to put into words what it is that they're doing, what approach they're using. If, say, a student is maybe misbehaving, or students are struggling to pay attention, or students are struggling to follow along, a lot of good teachers are able to course correct very intuitively, but they don't know how to put it into words. And when we show teachers these frameworks and these the research, it gives them the words. And senior teachers specifically find that very useful because everything that their gut has told them, everything that their experience has taught them, they now have the words for it, and they're then able to mentor the new teachers very, very well. So having them all in the same room is actually very useful because it gives everyone a chance to grow in their own way from where they are. I think that's the one that I would like to talk about. I know, is there something that you want to add here?
No, I think what you're saying is exactly correct. In fact, one of the teachers who was giving us feedback on this on one of these slides, when she mentioned that we asked them to tweak whatever they're doing. The first part of that is that hey, we want to grow from wherever you are. We don't want it to be that we are talking about basics to a person who has been teaching for 15 years. So even though principles are the same, whether it's a new teacher or an experienced teacher, the level of nuance sort of changes, and that is probably what is unique in our approach.
Okay. So the second question is, sorry, the last question is, how much time should be given to theory, modeling, practice, and feedback in one session?
Um, like I mentioned earlier, I think the practice part of it is probably the one that should get the most amount of time. So if we go step by step, theory is not something that we usually spend too much time on. It's good to have a quick discussion with teachers and get them to come up with that theory on their own and then show them some research. But that is not something that we spend too much time on. If we have to do a percentage, maybe 10% of the session is what I usually spend time on the theory part with. When we come to the practice, sorry, the model part, that also is not very extensive. It's explaining what you would do, have modeling it out for teachers, letting them come up with the steps of your routine on their own. So that would maybe be about, say, 30% of the time. Practice is where we spend the most amount of time, where teachers get to sit down individually in groups, discuss, come up with their lesson plans, tweak their lesson plans, come up with their routines, demo them in front of the class. So that is probably the most extensive part. So that would be around 40 to 50% of the section of the session is that. Um, and then the remaining time is where we give them feedback. Again, like Anuj said, it's constructive feedback. We focus a lot on what is already going well and then give very practical, concrete, constructive suggestions on what can be improved so that the next time they go into class, they can implement that. So yeah, that's how I usually do it, and that's how we usually plan our sessions. And Anuj, if you want to add something to that or tweak it according to what you usually do.
No, that's about it. Yeah. So, Shishti, I'm guessing there are
Okay.
no other questions.
No.
Okay, so thanks Shishti and Anjali and Dia for all the support, and the rest of the team also who has been working behind the scenes. Like I said, I mean, I know that some of my friends and colleagues keep telling us that, hey, you're giving so much away for free. You're talking about so many different things, and I think today's webinar was also no different. We're basically telling you what we do, and it's fine. uh, we do it. If you do it good, more teachers get benefit out of it. um, Probably we'll do it better. I think that is what it is. And so if you do want to get in touch with us, if you want it to be done for your teachers in your schools, in your organizations, um, please feel free to get in touch with us. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone who was here. Thank you for the team for supporting this. Thanks, Ritu, and we'll leave you with this amazing clip of feedback. And we'll see you next month.
आज भी हम ऐड ही कराएंगे ओके ये कितने बॉल्स ने तीन बॉल्स ओके तीन कैसे तीन का साइन क्या है एंड ये कौन सा साइन है आपको पता है इसको मैथ में एक नाम दिया गया है नहीं एक और नाम है इसका उसका काम है उसका काम है ऐड करना उसका काम है ऐड करना और इसका नाम है प्लस इसका नाम है प्लस ठीक है ये कितनी बॉल्स हैं टू ठीक है टू कैसे टू कितना कितना पढ़ना एंड स्लीपिंग लाइन ठीक है ये टू एंड ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਹੀ ਨਾਮ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਸੀ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ प्लस ठीक है एंड ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਸਾਈਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇਹ ਕੀ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ टू स्लीपिंग लाइन इसका नाम है इक्वल टू इक्वल टू की ਹੁੰਦਾ है इक्वल टू ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਬਰਾਬਰ बराबर ठीक है एंड ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਨੀਚੇ ਵੀ ਲਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਊਂਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ जोड़ना है ऐड करना है ओके 1 2 3 4 5 कितने हुए 5 अब इधर लीजिए हम 5 बॉल बनाएंगे यस 5 बॉल अब इसको हम इक्वल टू करेंगे मतलब बराबर करेंगे 1 2 3 4 5
5. ठीक है तो ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਪਲੱਸ ਦਾ ਸਾਈਨ ਆਪਾਂ ਐਡ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਆਪਾਂ ਕੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਸੀ ਐਂਡ ਇਹਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਕੀ ਸੀ ਇਕੁਅਲ ਟੂ 3 ball plus 2 ball is equal to 5 ball. Okay, 3 plus 2 is equal to 5. Very good. बहुत मार्क्स बढ़ा दिए मैंने यहाँ पे. Thank you.